And when you hit these new levels in life, you realize you can't be the old version of who you were. Consistency. It will always lead to greatness. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Ignite the World podcast, episode 13, Consistency Equals Greatness. I'm your host, Jamie Daddy Garza, and if you haven't done so, hit subscribe so you never miss another podcast episode. And if you're out there and you love your podcast in video form, have great news. Go check out our YouTube channel at Ignite the World Podcast so you can see these podcasts in video form, as well as other motivating short form video content on that channel. Wow, let's do this. So I am still ecstatic. For those who don't know out there, I am a huge wrestling nerd, and I love WWE. And over this past weekend, it was their biggest event ever, WrestleMania. And WrestleMania 39 was a 2-day event on Saturday and Sunday. And the beauty is, I've gotten my kids involved, and they love wrestling. So we had some great moments sharing and watching the matches over the weekend. One of them is one of our favorite wrestlers, and that is the Tribal Chief, the head of the table himself, Roman Reigns. My little son, Carter, loves Roman Reigns so much that we finally got to see Roman Reigns in person on the road to WrestleMania in early March in Washington, D.C., and his face alone just made parenting all worth it. Nonetheless, I'm sharing this because I'm talking about consistency. You see, with Roman Reigns, he is the current champion, and he won yesterday. So this continues his streak of not being pinned since 2019. He has been champion for 3 years, over 950 days. And he shut it down last night. Spoiler alert. And the reason I'm saying this, again, I'm talking about consistency. It always leads to greatness. You see, in fact, I did some research, and this is what I found. I found that Roman Reigns started in 2012, a little bit before that. He didn't even want to be in the wrestling business. He was groomed to be a linebacker, I believe. And something happened with his health. I think it was early leukemia, and he had to fall back. However, his family was always in this wrestling business. Since the 80s, 70s, they were always rooted in there. Family that consists of The Rock, Rikishi, High Chief Peter Maivia, the Usos. He could always rely on a family business. And I remember when he first came out, I didn't even like Roman Reigns. I thought he was trash on the mic. Now you can see in the background, my favorite wrestler to talk trash is The Rock, right? Like, I thought Roman didn't have that it factor. But what I've seen over the past 7 years, and when he made me a fan during COVID, was that he transformed himself. He kept showing up. He kept staying consistent as he endures on his winning streak, where he keeps winning. He is the face of WWE. He is the reason why tickets sell. He's the reason why WWE is so hot. He remains the champion, and that's what the champion endures. And I listened to interviews of his manager, Paul Heyman, who I respect immensely. He is a genius. And he was saying the fact that when you perform at such a high level, like Roman Reigns does, in a champion level, you sacrifice a ton. You sacrifice so much behind the scenes of what people don't see, because all people see, like me and you guys out there, is the show. We see him performing. We see his confidence. We see his greatness. We hear him. We see him constantly perform at main events, the biggest superstars, and he smashes all of them. That's what we see. What we don't see is the sacrifice he puts behind the scenes. We don't see the sacrifice he has when he leaves his kids to perform each and every day, each and every month, showing up, putting the titles on the line, and defending them. We don't see his marketing and publicity. We don't see his work ethic in the gym. We don't see his regimens to keep his mind sharp when he's performing at those high levels. And why I say that is because consistency will always lead to greatness. To share a story of myself, I realized that last year I got to serve for a networking chapter I was a part of, a B&I networking chapter. Shout out to the Woodbridge Business Exchange. And I kind of looked at it like being a champion, like being the face of our chapter at that time. Because when you're a face, when you're a president, you attract more people to fill the seats. You attract more people to want to visit our chapter. You are representing that chapter. When you go meet with other chapters and the director consultants, and you are the face. And I feel like that consistency showing in, showing out, everybody just saw the show. Everybody just saw the show on each and every Thursday of me running through a meeting with all this energy, high energy, attracting them to want to join our chapter. And I think last year, I've attracted 8 new members. That was a big deal. Boosting our morale, making the show look good, staying consistent at that level. That's like the same thing that Roman Reigns does as a champion for over 950 days. See, I take that piece of information into what I do. I tell my kids all the time, you want to be great? You want to be consistent? That's the one thing. You want to keep showing effort, because once you hit these levels, once you reach these points in life where you're performing at your highest level, you're on top. Why would you want to let off the gas? That's where a lot of people get it wrong. They get too comfortable. They get too comfortable once they hit it. And it's cool to celebrate. Yeah, celebrate. But always reset back to zero. At least that's what I do. I appreciate and I'm blessed, and I thank God each and every day for every blessing in my life. And I reflect, but I don't let that reflection lead into days or weeks or months. No. I soak it in. I don't even drink, so I toast to some water, do some prayer, and I reset back to zero the next day and keep on going. If you want to reach those high levels, what's behind those high levels? You see, from a business, I understand the reign of Roman. I understand why the WWE keeps him at the top. He's marketable. He fills the seats. My son wanted to see them, so he's actually a face. He draws a crowd. He puts in the work. He's consistent. He's a sure shot. The man hasn't been penned since 2019. The man's going on late night talk shows, Jimmy Fallon, all of that, and shutting it down. The man's handsome, right? The man's a genius. Body, he works hard. He looks the part. He is the part. And he has not failed since. That's because of his consistency and the effort he puts in. If you don't put in no effort, nothing will come from it. You look at all the greats. It doesn't have to be Roman Reigns. You look at all the greats out there in your industry, movie stars, musicians, actors, wrestlers. They all came from a story. They have a story, I should say. They all came from humble beginnings years ago. But all we see is their success. I've said this in the past episodes as well. But what do you do when you reach that success you have in your mind? most of the time. And I feel like I'm living it now as I still continue to grow. I feel like I'm in my zone of being hot, of being relevant, of being on top. I feel like I'm there, humbly saying too, because again, there's no cockiness behind this, but I feel like I'm in that zone. And when you're in that zone, I could tell you this, you don't really think you're in that zone. You just continue to perform and show up. During COVID, my business went, like down like a roller coaster. I'm afraid of heights. I don't even like roller coasters. But I kept showing up. I stayed consistent and prevailed through it all. And that's the vision I had when after the pandemic would end of what would happen to my business. And God has blessed me right now. I feel like I am Roman Reigns. I feel like I am a champion. I feel like I am the face of my company. I feel like I'm the face of businesses when I meet everybody and the leaders I get to shake hands with and on the radar of all these prolific people. They're drawn in. I draw a crowd. I draw a crowd because on Wednesday, I'm going to be speaking at a local event. I'm doing a workshop on short form video and I'm going to shut it down. I have people all in the community who I respect, older than me at that, coming in to learn from me. It takes a certain caliber to perform at these high levels, to continue to be a father, to be a husband, to be a business owner, to be a man of God, to be a man who wants to outdo the version of himself yesterday. It takes consistency. And it's that consistency that I am addicted to. I have a drive to continue to excel. And it's this consistency that I want to show my children who are raising 2 men and a beautiful baby girl. I want to be the example because you could talk to them all the time, but they see more than anything. And I want them to see day in, day out, even when it gets tough, of what it looks like. Just like the tribal chief Roman Reigns does. Effort, put in the effort. In the Bible, it says, faith without works is dead. You always got to put some effort in, no matter what you're doing. Be real, transparent, before I close out this podcast. I wasn't expecting to record this podcast. I was making an excuse like, oh, it's Wrestlemania. I was watching with my kids. They'll understand. Yeah, well, I learned that excuses are just well-planned lies. What would a champion do? What would an undefeated champion for 3 years do? Like Roman Reigns. Would he make an excuse and not show up at a big pay-per-view or an event that he's booked for? I'm showing up for you guys each and every Monday. That's what I promise. And that's what I'm going to stand on. And that's what I'm going to deliver. So you guys are still getting a podcast. I showed up. Consistency. That's it. It will always lead to greatness. I challenge anyone out there, whatever you're doing, whatever goals you want to hit, whatever you're striving for, to try to sprinkle consistency on top of that. Tell me the results of what happens after 48 hours, 7 days, 30 days, 3 months, a year, 3 years. Yeah, consistency. I turned 34 in about 2 more weeks, which also means I will be completely alcohol free for a full year. Consistency. Discipline. New levels, new devils. And when you hit these new levels in life, you realize you can't be the old version of who you were. And that's God right there, because God has the final word in all of this, and he sets you up. All those trials and tribulations, all those obstacles, that were in front of me that I hated at the time, that I was questioning, I realize now God's genius. And I realize He set those there so I could be able to perform at the level I'm performing right now, living in this moment right now, and transforming into the man I needed to become to better Him, His kingdom, and what I give back to my community, to my family, to my clients right now. Don't sleep on consistency. Simple. It's all fundamentals, the basics. That's all I got for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy Wrestlemania. You see I'm repping still hype off Wrestlemania. I go out there and be consistent. Here's a message before we head on out. We are all like sticks of dynamite. The power's on the inside, but nothing happens until the fuse gets lit. Ignite the world.